Hello, we are live now. It's the Niche Lifestyle Show. My name is Doug Cunnington, and Alex is missing today. So I believe he's on vacation or somewhere, but he's not here. And of course, we have our other fine host, Mark and Adam. Adam, how's it going today?
Doing very well, thank you, Doug. Not too bad. Middle of the week, which is good. Looking forward to the weekend.
Nice. And then Mark, how are you? We were chatting a little bit before, and you look all bundled up there.
Yeah, I got a mixture of things going on. So yeah, I had a really good weekend. Like went to Diggerland. There's a place called Diggerland, or there's a few different Diggerlands in the UK. So you can go and drive JCBs, or they've got ones digger games where you kind of knock over skittles with them, or you pick ducks out of water type thing. But the kids absolutely love it. Like, and my wife absolutely loves it. To be fair, she kind of loves that kind of thing. But yeah, it's just another example is like one where you kind of there's a pile of tires and you go and pick them up and then drop them onto like another pile. And you get to use like the full lot. So they have like a ride, which is like a huge digger where you basically put seats into the digging part. And it's a ride, so they already put it up on a hill, and then it kind of stretches as high as it can go and just sort of spins you around in a circle. So you go really fast and sort of starts tipping you forward and stuff like that. But yeah, so it's really good. It's a really good like day out. So did that and saw my 89-year-old nan there. She's got a twin sister who's also 89 and still with us.
Wow.
So she lasted a couple of hours just standing around. Didn't manage to get her on the spinny one, and yeah, they went to take her home. But yeah, so she was playing until she fell down the stairs. She fell down some stairs like 18 months, 2 years ago, and broke her collarbone and the top of her arm. And until then, she was playing golf. She was still doing 9 holes of golf quite regularly. And she was doing, she used to play tennis into her 60s as well. So she's always been really fit. She loves sport, that kind of thing. But yeah, she's just a social member of the golf club now.
Wow.
Had a really good weekend, but I was a bit sore in the legs. And I've since found out I've got cellulitis, which is really, don't get it. It's really painful and really annoying. And so now I've got antibiotics for that, and they're not making me feel good at all. So having a bit of a bad time at the moment with soreness and antibiotics making me feel unwell. So I'm hoping that gets wrapped up pretty quick. I'm going on holiday next week, so I want to have all done and dusted for then.
Yeah. Sorry to hear it. That does sound inconvenient and not very fun. So, okay. Well, I'm going to say hello to some of the people in the audience here, but we are talking about AI tools, and I selected this because it's so popular, and I thought we could have a great little debate if Alex were here, but he is out. So we're going to do the best that we can and explain our positions and talk about the pros and cons of AI tools, hopefully get input from the audience, because I think a lot of people in the chat have probably used AI tools more than we have, although maybe we've tested a little bit more than we realize. Additionally, I am going to be publishing some videos soon, some reviews and there's a spider rappelling down right in front of me. I wonder if we could like focus on it. We're gonna need to move this. I'll try to put it in front of the screen or in front of the camera. Can you see that? It's gonna bite me. I'm going to end up with cellulitis on my hand with that guy. All right. I'm assuming he's eating gnats or doing something productive down here, so I'm not going to do anything to him. So, okay. In the chat here, we have Ariel, who is early, but she's on now. We got Daniel as well. Urain, Carly, Tim, and Bradbury says I need to be in the middle so that I could add some balance. And Canzel. Zach is on 2. Sue. We'll say Fam. I'm not sure how to say the first name. David is on 2. And WordTune is a game changer. Okay. So that's a good thing to get some stuff going in the chat here. If you've had experience with a particular AI tool, let us know which one and which ones, and if you liked it or not. Some of them are better than others, I understand. So yeah, we'll do a quick little catch up too. So we of course heard from Mark. Adam, what's been going on this week for you?
Not a ton really, to be honest. Still working on our data project. I think we kind of mentioned that last time. So still looking for and analyzing hundreds of sites and putting all that together. So that's taking up a lot of my time this week because I want to make sure that the sites that we do include in our data set are only the type of sites that we would want to build or we consider as competitors. So it's great finding massive lists of sites, but then filtering them down to content and affiliate sites and that kind of stuff it's actually time consuming. I wish there was an AI tool that helped me do that, to be fair.
You could create it, yeah. So where'd you guys, where's the data set from?
So we're making it ourselves. So we're pulling together hundreds of websites across different niches. So at the moment, 8 different niches, and then we're pulling out from that the age of the websites, the DR rating, the number of pages they have, and a couple of other different bits to try and give us an understanding of, in certain niches, and what amount of content do you need and what kind of link profile do you need at certain stages during the website's life cycle. So for websites that are getting 100,000 visits, what does that look like? For websites getting 250,000, 500,000, 1 million, like what do they look like? And are there patterns we can figure out? And can we build roadmaps in different niches for different, hopefully, clients and say, you're either on track, you're above or below average, there's anomalies, but you should be trending along this path if you are in this space with this amount of content and this kind of link profile.
Got it. Very interesting. When do you have a target date when it'll be out?
Soon as. I mean, it is really time consuming, and then we don't really want to rush the analysis of it because I think that part is the really important part. So I don't know. Hopefully in a month or so would be ideal, but we might want to get someone to come in and help us understand the data once we've got it all as well, because we're not data scientists or anything like that. I don't think it needs a full data scientist, but just someone who maybe has a maths degree or a master's in maths or something like that to help us understand it, model it better and things like that.
Got it. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So for me, I've still been doing a lot of work in the yard. Whenever I'm done, I'll share a picture, but basically if people missed it, I live in Colorado and it's pretty dry out here. A lot of the neighborhoods do have lawns, so it's kind of standard new neighborhood. You get a lawn, waste a lot of water. We're basically a desert. So I ripped up all the grass and then I'm putting rock out there. So I think to date, I've moved about 10 tons of rock in the last week or so. By hand. Yeah, it's insane.
Just on your own?
100 degrees. Yeah, it's been my wife's like, you've been crazy. Like, what are you doing? But yeah, I mean, like I have.
You need a digger.
Yeah. It would have made a huge difference. Yeah, it would. When the crew did the backyard, we hired people to do the backyard. Yeah, they had like a small little bulldozer, a digger type thing, so they would move, probably a few hundred pounds of rock at a time. So they would just drive it back and forth, and they finished the whole thing in like 3 days. So, I mean, I'm actually moving pretty fast, but it's taking a huge amount of effort. But it's actually pretty rewarding. And even though it's been really hot, it's been, I just put in a podcast. It goes by fast, just moving rock, listening to a podcast or an audiobook or whatever. And yeah, the neighbors think I'm crazy because a couple days I moved rock for probably 8 hours. 8-9 hours, like full, like 100 degrees, like super hot. But today I'm going to do a little bit less, and I'm coming up on the tail end. But it like totally transformed the yard. So it went from, a lawn, it was in pretty good shape. I mean, there was a couple patches, but pretty good shape, to, different color rock, and there's going to be some mulch, and really transforming the whole thing to low water needs and succulents and things you don't have to water. So we could save, technically it'll probably take like 20 years to, unless water goes through the roof, it'll take a long time to like pay for the rock. But doing it myself probably saved, I don't know, 10 or 12K, something like that. It's pretty expensive to have a crew come out and do this stuff.
Yeah, it's rewarding as well. If you see the finished result, it's rewarding. You've done that. You've moved all that rock. You've planted everything.
Yes, especially, we usually sit at the computer, we're typing, doing stuff. So to have like a physical representation where like I've actually met more neighbors now too. So just I'm out there all the time and they're like, what are you doing? And everyone wants to, either they're asking questions or they're giving advice.
Yeah, they're asking, can you do theirs next?
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of people have a lot of advice for you if you start doing anything. They're like, well, let me tell you about this or that. So, and I asked a lot of questions when I was getting into it, but the good thing is you don't have to have any skills ahead of time, just like a stubbornness to just keep moving the rock. So, okay. And I'm going to hop back over to the chat here. And J. Paul, what's going on? Andy's on here too. People are mentioning ScaleNut, Quillbot. Chris is here. Daniel says Word Hero, Writer's End, and Neuron Writer are the tools that he uses. Sue likes Jasper and Copy AI. And let's see, Rick's on here too. And the live streams help him get through the day. All right. A couple others, but I'll come back to it. So I have a few questions just to get us rolling here. And I do want to ask you guys eventually about some of the tests that you have done. So before we get started, I think it's important for us to like lay out what we do and the biases that we may have so people can understand why we have the opinions, because everyone's biased in some fashion. So one of you can answer. I think it'll be the same answer. So one of you want to just explain what you do, and that'll give people a background on why we think the things we think.
Yeah. Go for it, Matt.
Yeah, I think we think that, first of all, I think it's important to define AI tools and like what kind of AI tools. I know Sue mentioned Grammarly there, which is kind of different to some of the other tools that are kind of mentioned in the comments there. So I think we've got to define like what AI tools we're talking about, but we definitely feel like there's definitely some use cases for some AI tools like versus others. We're a content agency, and we pride ourselves on being human written content. So obviously that's kind of where our bias kind of might sit a little bit. Although saying that, start of the year, we started to research AI tools. We started to look into, the marketing material is great, right? So in theory, for us as an agency, it'd be great. So we get to speed up our content, so we get more words written every day, increases our profit margin. In theory, like it comes up, it helps you be creative. We're coming up with ideas, like speeds it up. In theory, like better content, because AI has come up with some stuff that you wouldn't have thought about. And we did loads of tests, and we actually wrote hundreds of articles with AI content to see what it came out like. And we also, for a subset of that test, we also wrote human content side by side to see, okay, here's the human one and here's the AI one, written by the same group of writers, but like, how did we feel like at the end of like that? And so we definitely got some insights there that we kind of took from that. Anything I missed, Adam?
I don't think so. Like I say, I think there's definitely use cases, and we've got some use cases which we think AI is useful for. I think, and some use cases where it's not useful for. But that's not to say that's just right now as well, right? Like that's this moment in time. If you just compare like the last iteration of AI content, specifically content writing tools, to this one, it's like day and night. So, that's at this moment in time. Our view of that might change quite dramatically in the future when the next iteration comes out. I don't know, but there's also some inherent risks, I think, with AI content. We'll probably get onto them, but I think just in general, there's inherent risks about mass producing AI content, and how does Google deal with that, for example, or how do people determine fact from fiction with AI content if it's done at mass? There's lots of other issues, but yeah, that's kind of where we sit at the moment.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. And for me, I don't have an agency, but I, talk about content websites. I have a course where I, teach how to build a site, and I generally believe that you're going to end up, at least at this point in time, with higher quality probably better content if you either write it yourself, which is probably the best case scenario, or if you're hiring writers that are doing a good job. I know occasionally we hear like pushback, like, oh, if I hire a writer, they could also do a bad job. And that's true. I mean, if you go to a bad mechanic, you can have your car not get fixed. So that's not really a good comparison. And I think like we're going to get to some of the areas that I think you alluded to, Adam. There's probably some good use cases, but I think one of the issues that we all had, I know when I first tested some of the tools, the marketing materials are, well, they're marketing materials, right?
Compelling,
So
yeah.
they're selling the best case scenario to, probably the widest audience that they possibly can. And that made the expectations completely different than if they told the truth. And I'm not saying they should tell the truth in their marketing materials, but it would make it easier. So my expectation was, you put in, and probably a lot of people thought this in the past, you put in your keyword or your title, and then you get an article on the other side, however long you want it to be, formatted properly. I didn't have those grand expectations when I first tested this. And granted, this has been probably a couple years at this point, but I'm about to do a series of reviews on different tools. And basically, I just wanted like one paragraph, and it was still terrible. So again, this was an like older iteration, but basically it was still gibberish with redundant sentences, and it just didn't make sense. And I was like, well, this isn't ready yet. And I've been ignoring it and then talking about the same instance over and over again for 2 years.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
think there's
where,
a third kind of writer as well. There's a writer
Sure.
that's a good writer but uses AI tools badly. That's kind of like a third case scenario, because especially if you're paying people by the word, for example, it's just human nature that they're going to try and get done faster, right? If this AI tool helps them get it done faster, brilliant, they get it done fast. Like, it's quite hard to overcome that, I think, and I think even the most diligent writers might, succumb to that, to the I can't think of the right word, but the allure of like, oh, this
Right.
can get me there faster, and so there's a third kind of there's the bad writers, there's good writers, and there's good writers that use AI tools badly. I suppose there's probably bad writers that use AI tools as well, but they're probably the worst combination, I imagine.
And well, and I think, we all understand why people want to try to use the tools. It's like save time, produce content better. And one thing I want to make sure, because I think, the three of us, we were hoping Alex was going to be here to be the voice for some of the tools, but I think I want us to sort of defend the tools and, make the argument for them so we can, have a nice balanced conversation here. One other thing that I think we should just ask around anyone in the chat, and then I'll ask you guys, do you know anyone who is really crushing it using AI tools? Because we hear about people saying, yeah, we can use them, you just have to use them the right way. And they're like kind of doing okay. I mean, they could be making like a couple $1,000s a month, which is great. But all the people that I interview that are doing, 10K plus per month, they're either writing the content themselves or they have a small team of writers that they're working with personally. So I haven't run across anyone who's crushing it with AI writers, just a bunch of people, no offense to people that are using the AI tools, but a bunch of people who are saying, yeah, I'm publishing a shitload of content. Hopefully it'll work one day. Like, I don't know. I just haven't seen the use case where someone's like, this is working. And here's an example. Not even one. I have not heard of one. So, Adam, have you run across anyone?
No, nobody specific. I think there are people out there that are doing like programmatic SEO with AI generated content. You see these, we call them like spam websites, right? Where they've generated 10,000 pages of content very quickly with AI content. And more often than not, they're very short-term projects. You see them skyrocket up and then you see them skyrocket back down just as quick. I imagine those guys are making a lot of money in a very short period of time, but it's not sustainable. You have to start again. And then, I think there's that element. And then even if someone was killing it with AI content, not doing it programmatically, Like, what are they building it for? Are they like most people in this space? Most of us are building assets which one day we want to sell, we want to exit, and I know, personally, I wouldn't be comfortable buying a site that's been built on AI content, especially not at high end multiples. So, like, what is it? I wonder what the end goal was. If someone even was crushing it, are they just doing it for cash flow? Do they think and do they hope that they can sell it for, high end multiple? Do they think that they just won't tell someone and they won't know? I don't know what the end goal is. So even if they are, I wonder where it's leading to.
Yeah, exactly. And then, Mark, have you run across anyone?
No, I don't know anybody personally. I think I just reiterate what Adam says. But I don't know. I don't even think that they're that profitable that quick. They might get to we've definitely seen examples of sites that have got to a couple of million visitors within a couple of months, but then they're dead. So the amount of money, okay, so you might make a few grand, I guess. And I guess that's probably cheap compared to what you've paid for the AI tools and the hosting. Or maybe that is, for some people, that's okay. But yeah, we don't know anybody personally. And I definitely don't think I've seen anybody who's been using AI tools for long enough.
Yeah,
that's got to be heavily human edited anyway, to the point where it's probably
right.
human anyway. That's actually crushing it. So yeah, it's on that spectrum, isn't it? As well, when you say it's AI content, has it been edited to death that it was basically human written in the end, or is it just completely what the AI just spat out? And it's like there's so much variation along that spectrum.
Yeah. So I don't know anyone, and one of the arguments I made in the beginning was, if the tools were so good, then Jasper or some company could potentially just build their own content sites.
Yeah.
And if it works, then it's more profitable to build the sites and then sell them than to actually sell the software. Or at least it could be a revenue stream that is very interesting, especially when you look at the multiples. Because I know it could be a little, a SaaS tool is very profitable. So I do understand the math could be different, but I think there would still be an argument. If it was so good, these companies would be creating websites and selling them because the multiples are so high. There's a lot of money out there. All right. And let's see. Derek does say, did you not interview someone recently who is doing well with AI content? I interviewed someone who is doing well with content on one site, and they were testing AI tools on another site where they were able to rank quickly for super long tail things. To my knowledge, they weren't earning any money as of when I talked to them on that website. So blame that on writing a good headline. So that's my fault there. All right.
Did you use AI to write the headline, Doug? That's the thing.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah. And those are some of the things that maybe we could talk about. So a lot of the tools.
That is a good use case. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some things that you guys think, or maybe you even tested an AI tool to maybe write maybe ads, maybe a headline, maybe short form, we're talking a sentence or less. So have you guys tested any of those? I'll kick it to Adam first.
Yeah, we did. And one thing which it is great for, I know we talked about how we don't personally use, or I don't personally use meta descriptions anymore for my websites, but lots of people do. And we did test using AI to create meta descriptions. And it's really awesome. We literally put in a word or two about the article, and it creates the meta title for you, the meta description. And that was really good, I thought, because it comes up with topics which... It's just a funky way of creating 2 sentences on expanding on what those couple of words were. Sometimes you could just put a keyword in there. But what you found is you'd have to put in, not all the time, but sometimes you'd have to refresh it 4 or 5 times until you get a good meta description. But I thought that was a really good use case, which we tested and actually did like. We've not personally tested any of the others, but I did make a list of things which I thought would be good use cases based on our experience with meta descriptions. So you mentioned there adverts. You've got Facebook adverts and Google adverts, and I think given the nature of adverts, you need to come up with lots of angles and lots of different variations for split testing. Think of copy and headlines, and sometimes really hard to sit there and think out and bash out different variations at different angles. So I think if you used AI to create lots and lots of different ones of those and put them in a split test, like that would be awesome. I think that would be a great use case, which we should probably test with our own adverts, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
It is really hard to sit there and think of those things.
And Sue mentions that Alex had his site DartPix, and it was built mostly with AI, but it was hit with a Google update recently, but they, perhaps don't know why. Maybe it was a lot of buyer intent articles, but it seems to be recovering now. So, yeah, that's a good, instance. And I think Alex does emphasize, like, you get the initial copy and then you edit it, which you should probably do with like any content that you get anyway. So I think it is valid, but like, I think both of you were saying it before, like if you're going to edit it, depending on how much you change it, can you still call it AI content? And I have at least one example, because Ariel and I have talked on some of the interviews we've done, some of the coaching sessions, where it sounds like, and I haven't tested it, but it sounds like you essentially can, have an outline or a bulleted list where, and I do this often, actually have like a couple like just lists of things right here, and I'm going to try to see if it can, put it into a narrative form that's usable. So that could be valuable, especially, I'm thinking of maybe like a case study update blog post where I just have the facts that I want to be in there, and then maybe it can build a narrative around that. I would still have to sprinkle some things in, but maybe it can get to 800 words, and then I put in 200 words, and then instead of an hour to write it, it takes me 20 minutes. So I don't know if that's true, but that's some of the stuff I'm going to be testing out, but that potentially could be something. Now, that's completely different than the thing that we were sold in the beginning, where it's like you just put in the title and then you get your article on the other side. So if I put in all the inputs, then it may save a little bit of time, but I don't know how much. And that's what you guys ran into, because you tested this fairly extensively, I guess. So.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think, like you said, everyone was sold, or at least sold semi on the promise of it just creating this long form content. I think AI tools do have their merits, even when creating like content, but not writing it. So, like I say, for generating titles, for generating meta descriptions. One other thing which we found it was really good for was the research for an article. So, for example, with phrase, for example, you put in the keyword and then it pulls up all of the like H2 tags, and the people also ask questions, and it's all there in one kind of accessible dashboard where you can see what topics the top sites are talking about, and what the people also ask questions are, and what frequently asked questions are being used in the other articles. So it's great for that. It's great for speeding up the research, I think. But then, like I say, you get to the writing part, and our experience wasn't great with it. So I think it can be useful at certain elements, especially around like the start and the end, where you've got to promote the content, or you've got to think of ideas. Maybe you can use it to help with writer's block if you just start staring at a blank screen and it starts the first sentence or something. But the middle part, which is the meat part of writing the content, I'm still not sold on.
Right.
Yeah. I think the scenario that you gave, Doug, is like the best case scenario. So for some topics, especially question-based topics, it can help, and you can get there quite quickly. But what we found was that once you write, and for some on the other end of the spectrum, for some topics and some articles, it was almost nigh on useless, and you'd have to just revert straight back to human. But then at some point, for those ones that are in between, there's like it's really, really onerous for editing. It's really, really onerous for fact checking to make sure it's right. And like definitely our writers were like not enamored like with doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like, and I guess the other thing is that it's just to go a counterpoint to what Adam said about good for research. It's kind of good to research for an extent for what it digs out from the SERPs and from AI. What we found was when we wrote human and AI side by side was that actually the human covered topics better by doing their own research and looking at sites that are ranking in the SERPs versus AI content, which kind of missed some stuff. So I guess it was more topically complete with humans doing it, other than if you just stuck with AI. Now, again, you could argue you can use AI to get 80% there and then do your research to get the other bits. But then, like, you're doing the research then to get that point. So,
Right.
I think that was something that was kind of quite clear, that we were more topically complete by doing it as a human right now.
Yep.
And
Totally
of
makes
course,
sense.
and of course, AI can't think for themselves. They can only think for what's already out there. If you want to make something better or put some intelligent spin on something, then you're at a loss with AI. You need the human to be able to interpret some of the stuff that some of the research is done and make a valid point on that and improve the article in that way.
And Carly mentions that she uses Jasper to summarize longer articles for repurposing as social and meta descriptions, I think, helped family write bios and professional summaries for the resumes, and it gives it that marketing spin. So yeah, good example there.
I saw someone on TikTok literally this week talking about how they were rewriting their CV with AI, and it was giving them like the jazz, making it sound exciting with stuff they've done, rather than just the boring bullet point stuff. It was making it sound really compelling. So I could definitely see that.
And I did title this, pros and cons for AI. So I'll on that specific point, I would say having the skill to write it yourself is much better. I mean, maybe it's going to, in a few years, it'll be one of those things like, people don't need to memorize dates so much or do math in their head because we all have our phones and you could like Google anything in one instance and then you're done. But I would say like knowing how to phrase things and communicate better is a really good skill. You could learn some stuff from the AI tool, but I think if you're not going and analyzing what's happening, then, you may end up with a better resume, but you couldn't have written it yourself. And I think that's a good skill to have.
Yeah, and I also wonder, like, how does it over emphasize certain skill points then? Like, where would you stop if you're like, oh my god, this sounds amazing, yeah, I should keep that bullet point in, and then you get to the job and they're like, oh, you said in your resume you know how to do something. Like, oh, the AI tool wrote that, I don't know what to do.
Derek says he thinks if we get an AI tool to write the next show headline, that we'd get thousands of viewers. What do you guys think of that?
Didn't Alex use Jasper to do the last live stream headline, his topic?
I don't remember. I don't know if he was joking.
He did it to come up with ideas. He used it to come up with ideas, didn't he? Oh, that's why we ended up with loads of how to build website type ideas rather than lifestyle ideas. But yeah.
Well, and to push back on, that's a good suggestion, Derek. We should actually try it, and that would be a good test. But
that's a good use case.
Sure. I was going to say the ideas that Alex came up with, we've done between Alex and myself and you guys, we've done like thousands of videos. Like we kind of know how to put the title on there. Like usually, I mean, I think the problem with our show is we're on the thumbnail. All right. We need to get our images off. The titles are probably okay most of the time. It's us. It's us.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Okay. As we're moving through here, and Jason says that he has a lifetime deal on the tool that he uses, and if it was a monthly cost, then it probably wouldn't be profitable. So, okay. So I'm gonna skip over to another question here. Do you guys think that Google can tell if something is AI?
I don't know is the honest answer. I saw something. I saw two posts in a Facebook group recently, which weren't really conclusive. One was from Israel, and he said that he was testing out AI. He'd submitted the site to AdSense, and it got instantly declined for AI content. And then Jay Hatt, who works for Matt Diggity, said posted underneath that he'd put 5 sites into AdSense, all with AI content, and 3 were instantly said no, but 2 were accepted. So I don't know if there's some kind of nuance where maybe I'm not sure the background, whether that AI content was edited slightly or just pure AI. But that suggests that they may be able to detect, at least for AdSense, if it's there or not.
Yeah.
I
They
don't
can
know.
detect shit content, right? And
Sure.
have done for a long period of time. Content structures that don't make sense and stuff like that. They've definitely been able to do that, and that's why spinning doesn't work anymore and stuff like that. But also, I think, if you were just to use AI content, and we've seen the case studies, we've seen examples. We've got a few, but like we don't have to really show you. It's just a massive go up because they put 10,000 articles on the site in a month.
Right.
And then it smashed go down, and clearly they've identified that as shit content, whether they know it's AI content or not. Like, it's open to interpretation, I think.
Okay. And Vince mentioned that if you use the tool correctly, then you can't tell the difference, which, I tend to agree, right? Especially if you take the approach that Alex has been, where you use the tool to get, some initial draft and then you edit it from there. How can you tell the difference, right? And I think Alex did a test, and I think he even asked us, like, hey, I have two. I can't even remember. There was a few articles, and he was like, one was written by someone I hired on Fiverr, and one was AI. And I think I could tell which one was which. But the thing is, it wasn't because the article was written poorly. It was because I could tell, like, a bad writer, and I could tell one was a bad writer and English wasn't the native language. And then the other one, I think, had some redundancy. It was grammatically correct, and the AI content it read fine, but there were a few sentences where I was like, that's essentially a repeat of the thing. There were a few sentences like that. And I only read, I think, 2 paragraphs of like 2 pages or 3 pages. Like, it was long, and I could tell within the first, 200 words or so. So
Yeah.
now, do you guys think you can tell the difference? So forget Google. If you're reading AI content versus non, can you tell now?
Yeah, you can because like one of the main giveaways for AI content is if it hasn't been fact checked correctly. Like, that's one of the main giveaways for most AI content.
Yeah.
It says things which don't quite make sense. Like, I've not watched Alex do his paragraph by paragraph then edit it, but on his Dart side, like, it wouldn't surprise me if the AI spat out something like, the top score in darts you can get is 490 and you need 320s and an 80, like numbers which don't exist. But if you're just reading it grammatically, it sounds correct. Structurally, it sounds correct. And if you didn't know anything about darts, you'd be like, oh yeah, like, that's the highest score. But if you fact checked it, you would know that's impossible. You can't get a score like that. And that for me is like one of the key indicators that content is AI, is just that kind of stuff. And that can be edited out, but that's really hard in most cases. Most people work on niche sites that they don't know much about, maybe that they're not passionate about, that they think will make them money, and they don't know, like, they wouldn't know that is not the correct fact, or that's not the correct start, or that's not the correct number. And they can't edit that out because they don't know. And they don't know what to go and Google and figure out. That was the real sticking point when we were testing it, is that fact-checking part around topics which you are maybe a little bit familiar with, but not overly familiar with.
Yeah, and I think that'll be, when I'm doing some of the reviews, I think that'll be a fun thing to test. And I may even do like extended versions of, and they'll be potentially like either controversial or a sort of funny questions. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with and compare to the different tools and all that stuff.
Things around measurements, like anything to do with measurements or numbers or dates, anything, like, ask them questions around that, Doug, and see what the outputs are, because usually they'll be way wrong.
Like the average size of a male's, that kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Just see what comes.
Potentially.
I'll
I was thinking more like, how many millimeters are in a meter, that kind of thing. But
okay.
You can go with whatever you want.
We could test that too.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right. Sue says, absolutely. I think there are 3 main things to make your use of AI tools worthwhile. Only expect short outputs at a time. Give it good info and get familiar with the phrases it overuses so you can swap them out. good idea. And Derek mentions like new AI generated personas, so you don't have to think of it yourself. Vince says he thinks that Google doesn't care about AI as long as the answer is correct and fact checked. I could buy. I mean, I can generally buy that.
Isn't it? That's not the promise that we were given, where it doesn't come out correct and fact checked. That's the thing we're getting at. You've got to edit it to fact check it and correct it.
And Vince says that he has a friend who wrote all the content himself and then ran it through the GPT-2 detector and said it was all AI, which I have not done this, but I think it could be funny to just create a tool and it's just random, right? You put in whatever your input you want and it just says yes or no. It gives you some percentage between like 20 and 80. So it's always in the middle. And because the thing is, I don't think the tools would actually be able to tell. So, but you could create a tool out there and people can run their site through it, and then I could put ads there, and there would be actually no programmatic anything behind it. It doesn't check anything. It would just have like a spinning little pinwheel thing. So, and I it's great we have all the discussion here and there's all the tools out, but I was going to say, Adam, your point at the very beginning where it was like, what are we trying to do? Like, are you going to build a site and get some traction? Like, it'll be okay. You may have a hard time selling it. We had a question from Zach who says, would you be willing to buy a site built on programmatic, non-AI content? And, that's, potentially okay. I think that's probably not as big of an issue, but yeah. What are we trying to do with it all? And it's funny in a meta way, like I'm feeling my consciousness move away from my body, and we're talking, like we talk about building sites and like earning money on the side, maybe doing it full time. And now we're talking about the tools that can help you do it. And they may just be, regurgitating garbage from somewhere else that was inaccurate anyway. So it's like, what are we trying to do? It's so meta. And like, if everyone is going to be able to use these tools, then you have to differentiate somehow. And maybe that's through more editing. And then you end up in the same position you were in, where you're like, it's going to take a person to like go through and do this. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's where it gets contentious because of the philosophical kind of debate about it. It's like, what are you trying to achieve here? Like, was this the dream when you started an online business that you would edit like a dumb AI's content to like, was that what you imagined it would be? Is that the dream that you had when you started, that you'd be able to edit it to an AI tool? I guess that's one part, but also I believe there's a bigger picture thing here, which is like a bigger issue that's coming like down the road, and that is like, I think all this AI content, as you say, it's the same stuff, right, over and over again. And well, first of all, I think that there is a chance that is could get detected sometime down the road because it's leaving a footprint, right? So, like Google creates all these kind of topical, I can't think of the word now, like they create all these topical, what's the word, Adam? Like clusters, like entities, basically. Yeah, they create all these entities, and if they end up, extrapolating everything that's written in an article and then into its entities, they're all going to look the same. So again, like you end up leaving a footprint there. Like at some point, all this stuff looks the same, and Google's not going to want this, right? They want kind of new content that adds value, content that's better than everything else. And I think if Google can't differentiate between these two, but they end up all being the same stuff, then they're going to have to try and that's an existential threat to the SERPs. That's an existential threat to their business. Like, without sounding too dramatic, then they're going to have to find another way to kind of combat that if they can't tell the difference, right? So other sites might get hit and there might be collateral damage. But one way that we've seen them do this in the past is that they've raised almost more authoritative sites have become the ones that rank. Now they did that before. They kind of then moved away a bit, so more niche sites could end up then like ranking for stuff because they wanted that diversity in the SERPs. They didn't want the New York Times to rank for everything They wanted that mix, so they managed to like move it back the other way, and now we've got a nice balance between authoritative sites, but also like passionate people. Like one lever they have got is like, okay, well, if we can't differentiate between this stuff and it's all just the same crap anyway, like then we're gonna have to like, and like that's a risk. Then we're just gonna like pull the authority lever again, and like you have to be more authoritative. And that's just like one thing, right? That could happen. But to think that you're not leaving a footprint I think is a bit naive, and I think that's something that Google's own AI could catch up with, kind of eventually down the road. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that sounds all a bit dramatic, but like Google are going to react at some point if like it becomes a problem. You know, like none of us look at articles that are best X for Y, right? To work out what the best product is to buy, because we know that it's all generally like crappy stuff, and that's where the review update came in to try and improve that kind of stuff. If all of the SERPs for all the search terms end up being that, like, then Google's going to react again in some way. And yeah, I think it's a problem. I think it's something that they have to deal with down the line, and we might not like how we're going to deal with it. Now, we're not going to stop it, because while there's shortcuts and while there's people being able to get away with stuff that and rank, and I think that's where trying to do side-by-side ranking is like, you know, I can rank today with my AI content. Look at me, aren't I clever? Like versus my like human content. Sure, great. Like you get like there's loads of examples in our past as SEOs where we thought, great, this is awesome. We can do it this way, and Google can't tell the difference. We're brilliant. And then like you can't, but then eventually you look over your shoulder and Google's right there, and right. Yeah, so. Yeah, and that's not to say that AI tools won't get better and they won't have value in the future, but just because you're getting away with it now and it's okay now, and you think that you're doing a great job at re-editing it, and I think that's great as well if it's just like one person. But like I said before, if you give this out to writers to do on your behalf, damn straight they're not going to do as good a job as you at editing and making sure things are fact checked and that it makes sense and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just to highlight the bigger risks and the stuff down the road.
Yeah,
that's kind of my belief anyway. Like no AI content goes near my sites for that reason.
So, in the spirit of giving out some pros, one idea I just thought of while we were talking, you know, people have emphasized sort of short form type content, just a few sentences or maybe a couple paragraphs or so. But I think there could be a case to use some of the AI tools for FAQs, right? Those are typically pretty easy to find the answer for. They're typically really easy to just get the question. The answers are right there. So hopefully the AI tools can go extract that information. It could be easier to fact check. You know, you're maybe just checking one or two things, where if you were doing a full article, maybe there's a lot of things you have to check, not only what was covered, but what was not covered. So if you have to do that, maybe you're not saving much time. But if it's just one question, then I think you could probably save some time. What do you guys think? Did you test anything like that?
I think it's useful, definitely for short form content. Even just before the call, I was playing around with it even more for some short form content, and I was putting in trying to come up with like a company ethos, and I had to refresh like 7 or 8 times. And it come up with this one, and I saved it, and I really liked it. And it doesn't know nothing about the business. All I put in was digital marketing company selling content and links. And the thing it came out with was, we're not just another SEO company. We're an industry leader. We have our own teams of thought leaders, strategists, and creative thinkers. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, that sounds really good. That literally sounds like someone from a marketing department has put that together as a strapline or the ethos of a company, and all it knew was that one sentence. So I think for things like that, it's great. Like for those things, the short form stuff. And I come up with a list of other short form stuff which it could be used for. So you've got, like we mentioned, meta descriptions and stuff, and we mentioned Facebook adverts, but you've got email subject lines. If you're doing any kind of cold outreach, subject lines and headings are like need to be split tested massively. An interesting one which I came across, which I thought was kind of cool, was real estate listings. Like I see people using it for those, where they're generally boring, just saying this is a 4-bedroom house and it's got a garden. Like people use it to spruce those up and spice those up a bit so they're more enticing and a little bit better. I think is also useful in outside of our world, maybe in like the e-commerce world, where you've got product descriptions, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of different products where you want to write or rewrite product descriptions for. Like, I think it could be useful for that kind of stuff. Social media captions, things like that. I think for the short form stuff, AI is really good. One other thing, because I know we've only got like 10 minutes left, I want to touch on is I'm also really excited about AI images. So aside from the content, like the AI images, I don't know if you guys have seen or played around with the new DALL-E 2 thing.
Tell us
you can't
about
go. You can't go and you've got to go and request access. But I see a couple of people on Facebook and LinkedIn that have managed to get access, and then they ask you to put in the comments, what do you want the AI to create? And basically, it is it's like it's a tool where you type something in like in natural language. So you can say a pink elephant playing poker in the Sahara Desert, and then you put in what style. So you can put it in as a realistic or a digital art or whatever type of art or picture you want it to create, and it'll go in and create that. And some of the things are awesome. Like if you want to, hey Alex.
Hey, I just thought I'd drop in. How are you?
Hey,
right.
good.
You're right.
Oh, wow.
I'm in a park in Bath.
Nice. Yeah, we were just talking AI tools. We're glad you hopped in here for a second. So, yeah, I know you're not in for long, but do you like them?
AI tools? Yeah, I love them. I just wanted to say that I recently created an article with Jasper, and it's ranking well. It's about removing popcorn from your teeth. And yeah, it does really well. And I've got a full video coming out on it in a week or so.
Very nice.
That's my son there, by the way.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello, son.
There's
Is the brains beyond the operation?
Yeah. So yeah, we're having fun in lovely cloudy England.
Nice.
Anyway, you missed all the nice weather, Alex.
Sorry?
You missed all the nice weather.
Yeah, it's actually pleasantly cool, to be fair. It was 40 degrees when we left Spain, and that was a bit too much. So, and they were having fires and power cuts, and yeah, so good time to leave.
Very good. Awesome, man.
All right, well, I'll leave you to it. I just want to say AI tools are the future.
All right.
The future. That's probably the truth.
They're the present.
Yeah.
They're here now.
They're here right now. Embrace them. Use them. They're not article spinners. And yeah, there we go. That's all I wanted to say. I'll see you guys soon.
All right. See you, Alex. Have fun.
Bye, everybody. See you later.
Bye.
All right. Very fun. Okay, so Adam, you were right in the middle of making an excellent point. Do you remember even what you were saying?
Yeah, about DALL-E 2. And yeah, you can create. It looks like you can create awesome images, and there's lots of talk about should you use stock images, should you edit the stock image so it's unique, like on your website. I can definitely see a use case for where you describe images you want, and then everyone's going to have totally different images. You can describe, I don't know, if you're talking about dogs eating strawberries, you could say you want a big dog that looks like a bear eating the world's biggest strawberry or something like that. I don't know. It could get interesting, and maybe again there might be footprints and where you Google detects that kind of stuff. But that looks really exciting. Like, it's just exciting from what I've seen it can put out. I don't know about use cases.
I don't think it matters if they detect that, though. I don't think it matters if it detects that. That's just like, it's fine. I'd love to see it as well. I'd love to try it. I did try some sort of, I don't know if you call it competitor, but a different site that does similar, and it was so bad. It was unreal. It was like if you got the two worst bits of clip art, it almost made them like 50% transparent each and put them on top of each other, like from the two words that you kind of got in, or whatever number of words. And yeah, it was. I couldn't get anything decent out of it, but I'd love to try DALL-E 2 to see how often they get something right and something useful. Because the ones we've seen that people have shared look amazing.
They do look
pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, well, as we are wrapping up here, we see Carly says, given the heavy or marketing heavy nature of some of the outputs, has anyone tried to write a sales page repeatable formulas make the AI job easier. So I haven't tried that, but that was, that's one of the use cases that you often see. I think it would probably work pretty well as a starting point. And, I've written a lot of sales pages in the last few years. And I mean, really, I was studying other sales pages and then translating it into my own version. So I assume it's kind of a similar process. And I think it probably could work pretty well if you're willing to put in the time to iterate what you have and edit it. But I mean, really, this is like what a swipe file was like, or is, where people they collect good sales pages because they know they're going to refer to it one day, and they go study all that stuff and then transfer it into their own words. And I think that's pretty effective. But have you guys used anything like that?
No.
Yeah.
Short answer.
Yeah. Okay, and as we are wrapping, let's see if we have any more new questions.
I've got a cool way for us to finish as well, Doug. I've got to come up with some other AI tools. They're not content related, which I think are fun and interesting for people to go and have a play with.
Let's do it.
So one is called Thing Translator, Thing Translator, and it's by Google. Lots of these are by Google, by the way. And you point your phone camera at a certain object. So you can point it at a cup, for example, and then the tool will help you say what that object is in a different language. So if you want to say it in Spanish, but you just take a photo of your cup and it'll help you say it in Spanish, for example. I think that was really cool.
Yeah. Did you test it very much?
No, I haven't tested any of them yet, but I found them and thought they looked really cool.
Okay.
So that one. There's one called Quick Draw, where you draw an image, like just draw a piece of pizza or whatever, and then the game has to guess what you've drawn. And then with every person that plays the game, it gets better and better at guessing, because you tell it, did he get it right or did he get it wrong? Things like that. There's another one, this one's by Google again, called Scribble in Speech, where you say something and it turns free time speech into animated drawings, into doodles. And it's become the biggest data set of doodles, apparently, like in the world, through people playing this game. And then the last one, I only have 4 on there, was one called Aviva, which allows users to create soundtrack music. So it comes with like some preset algorithms to write music in predefined like styles. But that's become quite big now. People have used Aviva to create soundtracks for movies and all kinds of things. So that's like an AI tool that started with one of these funky projects and it's turned into an actual thing now. But you can go and try them out. I think for free, most of them.
Very cool. Yeah, I haven't heard of any of those, but that sounds awesome. Well, as we finish up, one last quick question for each of you, and I'll answer too. What would the AI tools need to do for you to want to use them or revisit them again?
Good question.
I think the use cases will get wider, and I guess as things get better. The problem is, I think ultimately at some point it's got to be a brain. So the AI is so good, it's basically a self-learning brain, because the type of content that anyone wants to read is something that's got that human element that can put a different spin on, can collect all the information and the research and the data, and then put their own spin on it, and that's something only humans can do. So sure, I think there'll be more use cases for it, but over time. But I think it's a long way away from like the stuff that we've been talking about, where it falls short right now. And eventually we will be able to recreate the human brain. I'm sure Elon will do it at some point. But like that's kind of where it needs to be to be truly a match for a human.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else, Adam?
Yes, similar to what Mark, and I don't know how long it's going to take there to get there, but like my understanding with AI at the moment is like there's 2 types. One is kind of like the phrase model, I think, which kind of scans the top X amount of results and tries to reword the content that's already out there. And then you've got the GPT-3 model, which has been trained on data sets like Wikipedia and stuff and tries to actually predict and write the stuff. But both have their drawbacks. Like the phrase type model, I think, can only ever produce content that's already out there. I.e., like if it's not ranking in the top X amount of results, it's never going to create that content. Or the other model, like the GPT-3 one, is like it only knows that data set, and there might be big data sets like Wikipedia and stuff, but they only go back so far and they only cover so much topics. And I think to become better, they've got to break out of that, like Mark, try and come up with their own ideas and create their own content based on their knowledge around maybe real life events or what's going on in the world, or tie points in history back to current stuff. I don't know. It's hard to put into a couple of sentences what it would need to be, but I guess just better is the one which sums it all up.
Yeah, and without repeating what you guys said, which I think you're probably accurate. I mean, we've been promised like VR stuff for, I don't know, like 25 years, and it's kind of interesting now, but like we were promised all this stuff like so many years ago, and it's still pretty shitty, like overall. So Sue has probably like a pretty close assumption. Doug will only be interested when AI consciousness is realized. So yeah, we're talking Skylab kind of stuff, or that's what it was in Terminator, right? Yeah. So Skynet. So I think
we're all a simulation anyway, right?
Yeah.
So we're just invented by computers too.
That's all. Yeah. And I think I'll be a little bit. So I agree with what you guys said. I think depending on what you're trying to do, I think you probably can be successful with some AI tools doing the short form stuff as a writing aid. But I think we're probably several years away from someone like using AI tools to build their site and making like 5-6K per month. Like we interview people that are doing pretty well. I think you can maybe use it here and there to help you out, but I think we're probably like much further away than the companies would want you to believe. Now, on that note, like I said, I'm going to be doing a bunch of videos and reviews, so I'm going to be like I'm going to try my best to find out like what they can do and like where they're falling short, because I've had so many people just fucking swear by these tools that there must be something to it, or a lot of people are lying to me. Could be both. I'm not sure. But I'm gonna test them out because I'm very curious. So many people have they just swear by them and how good they are, and I don't quite believe it myself, but I don't think they're lying to me. So all right, cool. What do you guys have going on this week? What's coming up?
We are doing a live stream tomorrow, which is all about selling your website. So how you should prepare to sell your website, what kind of documents you should get together beforehand, like places you can sell them, like tips and tricks for negotiating, things like that. So that's our live stream tomorrow. And then we've obviously got our Building Empires event, which is ongoing. That's not until January, but you can sign up now and get on our list early for that. Anything else, Mark?
Building.empires.live is the URL.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's no, I don't think I can think of anything else. I'm on holiday next week, so I won't be here. So I guess that's one thing.
Okay. Oh, and Alex won't be here either, right? So we. I don't know. Do we skip next week? Maybe we'll take it offline and figure it out. Otherwise, it'll just be the Doug and Adam show. So
that's when we'll get the 1,000+ visitors, Doug.
And we won't give the guys the right link. We're just like, it's now Doug and Adam. That's it. Okay, cool. And for me, I have a couple interviews on. I don't remember who I talked to. There's probably something out there. Oh, actually, tomorrow I got a great episode of the Doug Show coming out. How to get 100 referring domains in a DR49 in under 6 months. And I talk about the Shotgun Skyscraper campaign the niche website builders ran for me. And I go into the details and all that stuff. So that's episode 375 on the Doug Show. There's a link in the description. It comes out tomorrow. So Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I will see you soon. Thanks, everyone in the audience. And Gina noticed the rubber ducky on your shirt there, Adam. So
Yep.
we can close it out. All right. We'll catch you guys later.
Cheers, guys.
See ya. Bye.